My name is Grace Holloway. I'm 84 years old, and my hands still tremble when I remember the way the floor creaked that night. I was 6 years old, barefoot, holding a small cloth doll missing one eye, and staring at the closed door my mother had just walked out of. She didn't look back. Not once. The last thing she said to me wasn't "I love you," or even "goodbye." She just said, "Be good for your father," like I was being handed off to a babysitter, not a broken man with a heart full of thunder. Waited. 4 hours. Maybe days. I don't remember. The clock ticked. The lights stayed off. My father didn't speak at first. He just drank. He sat in his chair by the window like a stone statue, one that smelled like sour breath and burnt things. I thought maybe he was grieving. Maybe he'd cry. Maybe he'd hug me. But then one night he moved. His shadow covered the hallway like a thundercloud. He stomped into my room, slammed his hand on the wall and bellowed, "She left because of you." I froze, clutching my doll tight. My body stiffened the way small animals do before a predator. I didn't understand. I was just a child, but even then, I knew this man was no longer safe. And that's when I heard the words, "I'll break you down until there's nothing left to love. You belong to me now." His voice was calm. Come. And that scared me more than if he had shouted. That was the night my childhood ended. But to understand the horror of that moment, you need to understand how I got there. Just a few weeks before that night, my life was filled with sweetness. My mama, Rose Holloway, used to sing to me while folding laundry. She had hands that smelled like lemon soap and lavender lotion, and her laughter would fill the little house on Maple Ridge Lane like sunlight pouring through a window. She used to tuck me in at night and tell me, "The world can be dark, but you're my little light." And I believed her. My father, Harold Holloway, was different. Quiet. Distant. I'd only see glimpses of him between his shifts at the steel factory and his long sessions with bottles and cigarettes. Sometimes he'd toss me a pat on the head. Other times he wouldn't even look at me. But back then I thought that was normal. That was just Daddy. Until one morning, everything shattered like glass underfoot. I woke up to yelling, "You're a coward, Harold." Mama screamed. "She's 6. She's still wetting the bed because she's scared of you." "You made her weak," he roared back. "You baby her too much, she needs to grow up." Then I heard a crash. Something big. Maybe a plate. Maybe her heart. I rushed to the hallway, peeking through the crack in the door, just in time to see my mama shove a suitcase into her hand. Her eyes were swollen, red-rimmed, her mouth trembling. She saw me. For a second, I thought she was going to kneel down and hold me. Take me with her. Whisper, "We'll be okay, baby girl." But she didn't. She stepped forward, ran her fingers through my hair like she was memorizing it, then said those words. "Be good for your father." The door slammed behind her. My tiny world went silent. I stood there for hours, not moving, hoping the sound of that door would rewind like a record and open again. Didn't. That night, I slept with my clothes on and my doll pressed against my heart. Prayed. Cried. Waited. Then the waiting stopped. Because Harold Holloway started watching me. He didn't speak much, but his eyes did. They were cold. Studying me like I was a problem to solve or a threat to eliminate. When he passed me in the kitchen, he'd grunt. When I made too much noise, he'd bang the table with his fist. But the scariest thing was the silence. Silence that built pressure in my chest. Silence that made me feel like I was living in a bomb waiting to explode. Then came the night he finally snapped. He was drunk. I could smell it from the hallway. He kicked open my bedroom door and stood there, eyes wild, shirt stained, belt dragging behind him. "You think I don't see the way you look at me? Like I'm a monster," he hissed. "Your mother poisoned you against me. That little witch made you think I'm the bad guy." He stormed across the room and yanked my pillow off the bed. I screamed. He slapped the wall. "Shut up," he growled. "You're not the victim here. I'm the one left with the responsibility. I'm the one stuck cleaning up her mess. And I'm gonna teach you what it means to be loyal." He pulled the curtains shut. "Lock the door." My heart slammed in my chest like a bird trapped in a jar. I was 6. I didn't have the words for what was happening, but I knew in my bones something terrible was coming. I backed up into the corner, shaking, whispering, "Please don't hurt me, Daddy." His face twisted. Something in him snapped. He picked up the belt. Not to hit the wall this time, but me. That's when I bolted. I kicked the side of the bed hard, distracting him just long enough to slip under his arm and out the door. My tiny feet pounded the wooden hallway like thunder. He was shouting behind me, but I didn't stop. Ran to the closet, the one behind the stairs. It had a loose floorboard. Mama used to hide Christmas gifts in there. I crawled under it, barely breathing. I could hear his footsteps. Low, heavy, calculating. He was hunting me. That was the first time I ever knew what it felt like to be prey. But that night, by some miracle, he didn't find me. He searched. He cursed. He threw things. Then he passed out drunk on the kitchen floor. I didn't sleep. I stayed in that closet until morning. Until the sun touched the edges of the wall and told me it was safe to breathe again. But I knew this was only the beginning. And I was right. What followed were the longest years of my life. But before I tell you how I survived them, before I tell you how I escaped, before I tell you what I did when I saw him again after 40 years, you need to hear about the day I met the one person who made all the difference. The neighbor who knocked on the wrong door and saved my life. If this story touched your heart or left you wanting more, don't scroll without showing some love. Like, comment with your thoughts, and hit that subscribe button, because Grace's journey is just beginning, and what happens next will break your heart all over again. I was still hiding when the first knock came. It was a soft tap, almost a whisper. I thought maybe I imagined it. But then it came again. 3 gentle knocks, followed by a pause, then 2 more. I held my breath, curled in the closet under the loose board. Dust covered my nose. My legs had fallen asleep. My doll Molly was gripped so tight in my hand her arm had nearly come off. My ears strained, trying to hear who it was. Then I heard her voice. "Hello. Is anyone home?" It was the voice of a woman. Kind. Not like Daddy's deep, slurred bark. This one sounded safe. My heart jumped. But I didn't move. Not at first. What if Daddy woke up? What if he told her to leave? Then I heard footsteps, coming toward the closet. "Hello," she repeated, this time closer. "Sweetheart, are you all right?" I peeked through the crack in the wood. And there she was. A woman in her 50s, with soft brown eyes and silver-streaked hair pulled into a tight bun. She wore a blue sweater and carried a paper bag. "I brought the casserole your mother asked for last week," she said gently, as if speaking to the walls. But something told me to come check in. She knelt by the closet door and reached out slowly. "I know you're in there," she whispered. "It's okay. You don't have to be afraid." For the first time in days, I let out a tiny sound, a whimper like a scared puppy. I paused, then opened the door. When her eyes landed on me, they widened with horror. "Oh my God," she gasped. "Baby girl, what did he do to you?" She dropped the casserole and scooped me into her arms before I could protest. I trembled in her embrace like a leaf caught in a storm. She didn't ask for details. She didn't demand explanations. She just held me. And I broke. I sobbed until my throat burned. Until my voice was nothing but a rasp. Until I fell asleep in her arms, the safest place I had known in weeks. Her name was Mrs. Edith Myers. She lived across the street and had known my mama for years. Said they used to knit together on Sundays, laugh about church gossip, talk about life before the war. When she brought me to her house, I was scared. Not of her, but of what might come next. Would Daddy come looking for me? Would he be angry? Would he drag me back? But for 2 whole days nothing happened. She fed me warm soup. Let me sit in her quiet garden. Gave me a nightgown that smelled like lilacs. And she watched me, not with suspicion, but with concern, like she was piecing together a puzzle that broke her heart. Finally, on the 3rd morning, she asked me a question that changed everything. "Grace," she said softly. Do you want to stay here? Or do you want me to talk to someone? Someone who can help. I didn't answer with words. I just nodded. That afternoon, Mrs. Myers called a woman from the church who worked with something called Child Protective Services. Her name was Miss Agnes. She wore glasses that slid down her nose and kept a little notepad in her purse. She asked me simple questions with serious eyes. Does your daddy hit you? He nodded. Does he leave you alone for long? Nod. Has he ever made you feel unsafe? I hesitated. My voice was small. He said I belonged to him now. She closed her notepad. Her hands were shaking. Okay, Grace. That's all I need to hear for now. What happened next felt like a whirlwind. Police, questions, social worker, temporary home. But I remember this clearly. The night they came to take me back to get my things, Daddy wasn't home. The door was cracked open. Empty bottles lined the floor. Ashtrays were full. A picture of Mama was torn and thrown in the corner. They let me walk in with Miss Agnes. I went straight to my room. Packed Molly, my tiny pink blanket, and one pair of shoes. On my way out, I looked at the closet. The one I had hidden in. And I shivered. Miss Agnes knelt beside me. You don't have to come back here again. He nodded. But I wasn't sure I believed her. Because the world outside. That was a new kind of scary. I spent the next year bouncing from home to home. Some nice, some not. One family had a boy who liked to pinch. Another had a mother who shouted too much. But none of them had Harold Holloway. And that, I told myself, was enough. Still I kept waiting for Mama. I used to write her little letters in my head. Ones I never mailed because I didn't know where she was. Dear Mama, today I learned to tie my shoes. Are you proud of me? Dear Mama, I made a friend. Her name is Lily. She has freckles. You'd like her. Dear Mama, why didn't you come back? Was I too much? Too loud? Too small? I stopped writing after the first Christmas without her. But I never stopped wondering. Until one day, 10 years later, I got an answer. I was 16, working part-time at a bakery, saving up for my own room in the boarding house. I was wiping down the counter when the bell jingled. And there she was, Rose Holloway, my mother. Her hair was shorter. She wore lipstick. And she had a new child clinging to her arm. Grace, she whispered. I nearly dropped the tray. For a moment, the air vanished from the room. Mama, yes. She stepped forward slowly, eyes wet. I didn't know where you were. I looked. I swear, baby, I looked. My voice shook. Did you? For how long? She opened her mouth, closed it, then looked at the girl beside her, my half-sister I assumed, and said, This is Emma. I stared at Emma, then back at her. All I could say was, Why didn't you come for me? She cried. But I didn't. Because the truth was, the hole she left in me had been filled, not with forgiveness, but with questions. Rage. And quiet, cold strength. I asked her one final question that day. Did you know what he was doing to me? She looked away. And in that silence I got my answer. Turned, walked away, and never looked back. But her reappearance stirred something dangerous. Because Harold Holloway was still alive. And I hadn't seen him since I was 6. But that was about to change. 'Cause 3 weeks later, got a letter. It was signed. Your father, Harold. I heard you're back in town. Let's talk. I'm dying. And just like that, the past came clawing at my door again. If you felt this chapter in your soul, don't forget to show some love. Like, comment with your thoughts, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming. Next chapter will bring you face to face with a man who tried to destroy her. But Grace? She's not a little girl anymore. I held the envelope like it was something toxic. Something that could seep into my skin and rot me from the inside out. The handwriting was shaky, barely legible, but I knew it instantly. Harold, my father. The man who made my childhood a prison I never asked to be born into. The man who stole my voice before I ever had the words to describe what he'd done. And now he wanted to talk. Let's talk. I'm dying. Those were the last 4 words on the page. I sat in the small room I rented above the bakery, staring at the letter long after the sun had set. 1,000 thoughts flooded my head, each one louder than the last. What did he want? Why now? What made him think he had the right? Paced the room. My hands trembled, but I didn't cry. I hadn't cried in years. Not since the night I walked away from Mama at the bakery. Not since I buried the last trace of the little girl I used to be. But this letter, it scraped at old wounds that never fully closed. The next morning, I brought the letter to the only person I trusted in the world, Mrs. Edith Myers. Yes, the same woman who pulled me from the closet all those years ago. She was older now. Her bun a little looser, her step a little slower. But her heart was still solid as gold. She read the letter, eyes narrowing with every line. "Grace," she said slowly, "you don't owe him anything. Not one word. Not 1 second." "I know," I whispered. "But I need answers." Her eyes softened. "Then go get them, child. But go with armor on." 2 days later I went. I didn't wear black. I didn't wear flowers. I wore steel-toed boots and a jacket too thick for summer. Because I wasn't going to mourn him. I was going to confront him. The address he wrote was a run-down veterans' nursing home 2 towns over. The building was tired like its tenants. Gray paint peeling, grass overgrown, windows cloudy with age. A nurse named Carla led me down a long hall. "He doesn't talk much," she said. "But when he does, it's always about you." Almost choked. He spoke about me. When he never let me speak. Room 19B. The door creaked open. He was there. Lying in a bed that looked too clean for someone so filthy on the inside. His body had shrunk. His beard was white. Tubes snaked from his arms. Machines beeped behind him like a quiet ticking clock. He opened one eye, saw me, and smiled. "Grace," he croaked, "you came." I didn't sit. "Why did you write me?" He nodded slowly, coughing into his chest. "Because I'm dying. And I didn't want to die without seeing what you became." I stared at him. "What I became? You mean what you didn't destroy?" That smile faded. "I wasn't well, Grace," he muttered. "Your mama left and I snapped." "You snapped," I said, my voice rising. "You locked me in closets. You hit me. You made me fear sleep. And now you want me to believe it was all because you were unwell?" He looked away. "I just want to say sorry." I let that sit in the room for a while. Then I said, "You don't get to say that." He turned back to me, his face pale. "Then why did you come?" "Because I needed to see your face before you left this earth," I said. "Not to forgive, but to show you who I became despite you." I leaned forward. "I became a woman you couldn't break." He swallowed hard. Silence. Then his voice cracked again. "She never came back for you, you know. Your mother. Not once. Ran. Left us both." "I know," I said. "But at least she didn't try to kill me from the inside out." He closed his eyes. "I had dreams, Grace," he whispered. "I was supposed to be a good man. A husband. Father. And then the war. And the factory. And your mother. It all crumbled." I crossed my arms. "That doesn't make you a monster. What you did to me, that's what made you one." He sighed. "You're right." It was the first time in my life I'd ever heard him say those words. I didn't say goodbye when I left. I didn't hold his hand or offer peace. I simply turned, walked out the door and exhaled. But what happened next, I wasn't prepared for. Because 1 week later, I received a letter from a lawyer. Inside it was a will. Harold Holloway had left me everything he had. It wasn't much. An old truck, a run-down shack on the edge of town, a few war medals, and a safety deposit box with a small pension. But the letter attached to it changed everything. "Grace, I know I'm the reason you stopped trusting the world. I know my apologies will never be enough. But I want you to have what's left of me. Not because you owe me anything, but because I owe you everything. I watched you grow from afar. Saw you working at the bakery. I kept my distance because I didn't deserve to be near you. But I'm proud of you. Not for surviving me, but for becoming better than me. Made my hands shake. Made my knees buckle. Because buried under all the rage and shame was a truth I hadn't touched in years. I still wanted to be seen. Still wanted someone, anyone, to say, "You made it." But I wasn't ready to accept his offering. Not yet. So I did something I never imagined I'd do. I drove to the old shack he left me. Alone. I hadn't been back to that part of town since I was a child. The air smelled the same. Wet leaves, pine, and something rotten. The house stood like a skeleton, windows broken, roof sagging, porch covered in weeds. I stood there for a long time. And then I stepped inside. Every creak beneath my boots whispered memories I'd buried. The wallpaper was peeling. The old couch was moldy. A photo of me and Mama sat cracked on the floor. But the worst part, the part that froze me in place, was my old room. It was exactly as I left it. The curtains still pink. The little wooden chair still by the window. And the closet, still there, still shut. Opened it. The loose board was gone. In its place was a note. "Grace, I fixed the board. I couldn't fix the past. Sorry." I don't know how long I stood there, holding that note. I didn't cry. But something inside me shifted. I still didn't forgive him. But for the first time in my life, I stopped carrying the weight of what he did. I left the house that night. And as I stepped into the moonlight, a strange peace filled me. I had looked the monster in the eye. And walked away whole. But just when I thought the past had finally loosened its grip, another ghost came knocking. And this one had my mother's eyes. If this chapter struck something deep in you, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe, because in next chapter, the woman who left her child behind returns once more. But this time she's the one who needs help. Will Grace show mercy? Or protect the girl she once was? The past never dies quietly. It doesn't fade like an old photograph or dissolve like a dream. No, the past has claws, and sometimes it comes knocking with a face you once called Mama. It was early spring when she appeared again. I had just returned from a shift at the bakery, arms tired from lifting flour sacks and heart still heavy from the trip to that old house Harold left me. I'd thought I'd found closure. Thought I'd stood at the edge of the past and finally closed the door. But when I stepped onto my porch and saw her there, standing like a ghost under my porch light, I felt the air go still in my lungs. Rose Holloway. Older. Thinner. Her curls now graying around the edges. She clutched a worn purse and a folded coat, even though the air was warm. Her eyes, those same sea glass blue eyes I inherited, were puffy, red-rimmed and rimmed with regret. "Grace," she whispered. I didn't move. My keys hung frozen in my hand. "What do you want?" I asked. My voice was low. Cold. She blinked slowly. "I need a place to stay. Just for a little while." I almost laughed. But there was no humor in me. "You left me in a house with a man you knew was dangerous," I said. "You didn't write. You didn't come back. And now you want a place to sleep." Her shoulders dropped, like she had been expecting the blow. "I was afraid," she whispered. "I thought I was doing what was best." "Best for who?" She looked down. I thought about slamming the door in her face. I wanted to. Every bone in my body screamed for it. Every scar I wore beneath my skin pulsed with fury. But then I looked closer. And I saw something I hadn't seen before. Bruises. Faint. Covered by makeup, but they were there. Her lip had a small crack at the corner. Her hands trembled. "I'm not here to reopen old wounds," she said. "But I have nowhere else to go. He's gone now. But not before taking everything. My home. My money. My dignity." I stared at her. This wasn't the mother who left me. This was a woman who had been broken, just like I once was. I didn't hug her. I didn't cry. But I opened the door. "One night," I said. "That's all." She nodded and stepped inside like she was entering a chapel. That night was the quietest we'd shared in over 40 years. She slept on the couch. I stayed in my room, listening for footsteps, just like I did when I was a child. But instead of fear, there was confusion. Why had she come now? What was she running from? What was she hoping to find in me? In the morning, I found her sitting at the table, hands wrapped around a cup of tea. "I know I failed you," she said softly. I didn't answer. She looked at me like she was trying to memorize my face. "I left because I was scared." Harold had changed. He wasn't the man I married. He drank. He screamed. I thought I could leave and come back when things calmed down. I didn't. "You didn't come back for me because you didn't want to face what you'd done," I said. "Let's call it what it is." Tears filled her eyes. But I didn't comfort her. "I tried to rebuild my life," she said. "But I chose wrong again. Another man. Another mistake. This time he used his fists instead of words." "Do you want sympathy?" I asked. "No," she whispered. "I want truth. And a chance to give you some." She pulled out a folded envelope and slid it across the table. "What's this?" "It's a letter," she said. "From me to you. I wrote it 2 years after I left. Carried it for years. But I never had the courage to send it." I stared at the envelope. For a long time I didn't open it. I just looked at her. This woman who had given me life but left me to nearly lose it. And then I read, "My dearest Grace, if you're reading this, I hope you're older, stronger. I hope you found kindness somewhere in the world. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I thought Harold would break me. I thought if I stayed I'd die, and if I took you he'd come after us both. I was wrong to leave you behind. I will never forgive myself for it. I hope one day you can forgive me. But even if you don't, I want you to know, you were always my light. Even in the dark." "Put the letter down." She stared at me, eyes searching mine. "I can't change what happened," she whispered. "But if there's anything left in you that wants to know me, not the mother who failed, but the woman who finally got the courage to leave." She didn't finish. I stood, walked to the window, and thought about the little girl with the doll missing an eye. What would she say? What would she want? I turned to Rose. "You can stay. But if you lie to me once, you leave. No second chances." She nodded. "That's more than I deserve." And for the next few weeks, she lived in my house. She cooked sometimes, cleaned, told me about books she read, birds she watched. But there were no hugs, no stories, no remember whens. We were strangers with shared blood and broken pasts. Until the day we found the second letter. It was tucked behind the photo frame she brought with her. A picture of me when I was about 3, sitting in Mama's lap. The letter was addressed to both of us. And it wasn't from her. It was from Harold. To Rose and Grace. If you're reading this, it means you're both still alive. That alone gives me peace. I was a monster. I know that. I don't expect forgiveness. But I do want to tell the truth before I leave this earth completely. The man who made me what I became was my own father. He raised me with fists, with shame, and with silence. I swore I'd never become him. But pain doesn't disappear. Hides. Then it festers. I passed that rot on to Grace. And I drove Rose away with it. If there's any justice in the world, it's that Grace still walks. That she still breathes. That maybe, just maybe, you two can build something where I only left rubble. Forgive each other. If not for me, then for yourselves. I put the letter down and stared at my mother. She was sobbing. And for the first time I felt something shift in me, not pity, not forgiveness, but understanding. She hadn't known everything. And I hadn't known what she carried either. That night I sat beside her. We didn't talk. We just listened to the wind tapping on the windows. And it felt like silence finally meant peace, not fear. But life has a way of reminding you that healing isn't a straight line. Because 2 weeks later we got a visitor. A young man in a pressed shirt, holding a folder. He was Harold's lawyer. "I'm sorry to disturb you," he said, "but there's something we didn't include in the estate file. Something personal." He handed me a photograph. It was a girl, about 6 years old. Curly hair, brown eyes. Underneath it, a note. "Her name is Emily. She's yours, Grace. And just like that, my world tilted again. If this chapter stunned you the way it stunned Grace, hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Because next chapter takes us into a past Grace never knew existed, and a future she never planned for. Her name was Emily. That's all the lawyer said before he placed the photograph in my hands and turned my world upside down. Small child. Big brown eyes. Curly hair pulled into puffs. And something about her face. It wasn't just the structure or the eyes or the skin. It was the quiet sadness. The same sadness I carried once. The kind that doesn't come from scraped knees or broken toys. She's yours, the lawyer said again, clearing his throat. Well, technically she's your sister's child. Your half-sister. Emma. But Emma, she named you guardian in her will. Blinked stunned. Emma, I whispered. Mama's second daughter. The little girl clinging to her hip the day she reappeared at the bakery all those years ago. I hadn't thought of her in decades. She passed away 2 months ago, the lawyer continued. Car accident. Emily survived. But there was no father listed. No other family. Just you. I stared at the photo again. She looked so alone. The lawyer shifted. The girl is currently in temporary state care. But if you're willing to accept custody. Cut him off. Where is she? He paused. She's at a group home just outside Fairview. I'll go today. He gave a slight nod and left. As the door shut behind him, I sank into the chair. I was 72 years old. I had spent the last 4 decades trying to rebuild what was stolen from me. And now the universe was asking me to raise a child. A child abandoned by the same woman who once abandoned me. I stared at the photograph again. This wasn't coincidence. This was legacy. And I had a decision to make. Rose came into the room. Her hands trembled as she picked up the picture. Her eyes welled instantly. She's Emma's, she asked. He nodded. Tears slid down her face. She looks just like her. She looks like me, I replied. Rose flinched then nodded. Yes, she does. I'm going to meet her. Rose reached out slowly. Let me come with you. And for reasons I couldn't explain, I let her. We arrived at the group home that evening. The place wasn't bad, but it wasn't warm either. Neutral walls, laminated floors, a smell of cafeteria food and antiseptic. A woman named Miss Carla greeted us with a clipboard and gentle voice. She's quiet, she said. Doesn't talk much. But she's smart. Watches everything. She led us to a playroom. Parse. Few toys. Print. One child sat alone at the table, drawing. My feet stopped moving. That was her. Emily. She was coloring the corner of the page in tiny, careful circles. Her back straight, feet swinging off the chair. She looked up as we entered, but didn't smile. Emily, Miss Carla said softly. There's someone here who wants to meet you. She didn't answer. I approached slowly, my voice steady. Hi, Emily. I'm Grace. She tilted her head. Grace. Yes. I'm your family. She blinked. My mommy talked about you. She said you were strong. Like stone. My throat closed. She said if anything ever happened, you'd come. I couldn't hold it in. I knelt beside her and took her tiny hand into mine. It was cold. But she didn't pull away. I'm here now, I whispered. And I'm not going anywhere. She nodded once. Then softly. Okay. That night we brought her home. Not to a house of toys or color or songs, but to safety. To quiet. To healing. The first week was hard. She didn't speak much. She wouldn't sleep in her own room. She'd wake up crying. She refused to eat anything red. But I recognized the signs. Because I was her once. And slowly, piece by piece, we built trust. Rose baked her cinnamon bread. I let her help me at the bakery. She liked to knead the dough, said it felt like squishy clouds. At night I read her stories. Not fairy tales but real ones. About women who built things with their hands. About girls who climbed mountains and didn't need princes. She loved them. One night, she crawled into my lap and whispered, "You're like a lion." Smiled. "A lion." She nodded. Fierce, but soft on the inside. That was the first time I cried in front of her. 'Cause no one had ever described me like that. But Emily saw through everything. And for the first time in decades, I didn't feel alone. Still something weighed on me. I needed to know what happened. How her life had ended in a car crash. Why she'd chosen me, of all people, to raise her child. I contacted the hospital where she'd been brought. Then the apartment where she last lived. And I found her journal. A slim blue notebook tucked in a drawer. Faded cover. Smudged ink. But legible. I read it cover to cover. And every word cracked me open. "Dear Grace, I don't know if you'll ever read this. But if you do, please know I didn't forget you. Mama talked about you sometimes. When she thought I wasn't listening, she'd cry afterward. Think she was ashamed. When I turned 16, I looked for you. Found out you ran a bakery. I went once. I saw you through the window. But I couldn't go in. I didn't know what I'd say. Then I got pregnant. You left. I was scared. I didn't want to be a mother like ours. But every time I thought about giving up, I thought of you. You survived things no one should. And you still stood tall. So I stood too. If anything ever happens to me, please take Emily. She needs someone who knows what pain is, but who never gave into it. That's you." I closed the journal and wept. Not because of grief, but because of grace. Emma had tried. She'd been watching from the shadows, just like I had once. She hadn't abandoned her child. She had fought to protect her. Until the very end. That night, I held Emily as she slept. Her small chest rising and falling against mine. And I made a silent promise. That the cycle would end here. That no child under my roof would feel unloved, unheard, unseen. The next morning we walked into town together. People stared a little. An old woman with a young girl holding her hand. But I didn't care. I walked tall. Because for the first time I felt like I was walking forward. Not away from something but toward something. Legacy. Healing. And maybe, just maybe, peace. But life has a way of testing your peace. 'Cause 2 weeks later someone knocked on my door again. This time it was a man. Sharp suit. Shiny shoes. And behind him, another child. Boy. Holding a folder labeled, "Custody Inquiry. Emily Holloway." And when he spoke, he said one sentence that shattered the calm I had built. "I believe I'm her biological father. And I'm here to take her back." If this chapter hit deep, if your heart is tied to Grace and little Emily, don't scroll without liking, commenting, and subscribing. Because in the next chapter, Grace faces the most terrifying question of all. Can love be enough to keep a child safe when the law comes knocking? He stood on my porch with polished shoes and a perfect crease in his suit pants, holding a little boy by the hand and looking at me like I was the one interrupting his life. "I believe I'm Emily Holloway's biological father," he repeated. "And I'm here to take her back." The wind stopped. The boy beside him looked about 4. Same curls. Same skin tone. But his eyes were tired. Too tired for a child. I felt Emily's hand tighten around my fingers from behind the screen door. "Who are you?" I asked, voice steady but low. "My name is David Walker," he said. "Emma and we had a thing. Years ago. I didn't know about the child until I saw the obituary and..." He cleared his throat. "Did some digging." "You did some digging," I repeated, stepping forward. "And you came here to what? Collect her like she's a bag of groceries?" David's face twitched. He wasn't used to being challenged. "I came here to reclaim my daughter," he said. "She's not a lost item," I snapped. "She's a child." He took out a folder and opened it. "I've started the legal process. DNA tests, financial affidavits. I have the means to give her a good life." I felt the bile rise in my throat. "Oh, so now that Emma's gone and you want to play hero?" "I'm not here to argue," he interrupted. "I just want what's mine." That word, mine, set my blood on fire. I'd heard it before. From another man. One who used it like a weapon. I stepped forward until we were toe to toe. She's not yours, I said. She's a human being. And right now she's terrified. He looked past me and tried to catch Emily's eye. But she ducked behind my leg and whispered, "Grandma, I don't want to go." The word grandma hit him like a slap. "She calls you that?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Because I've been the one raising her, feeding her, holding her when she cries. Not you." He looked down at the boy beside him. "This is Ezra, her half-brother. I want them to grow up knowing each other." And blinked. A half-brother. Emily peeked out at the boy, who looked up at her and gave a small wave. She didn't wave back. The lawyer he'd brought stepped forward. "Ms. Holloway," he said, "Mr. Walker is not looking to cause chaos. He's simply asking for visitation rights as the biological father. The court will decide the rest." "I see," I said. "Then tell the court to get ready. Because I won't let her go without a fight." And I shut the door. Emily's breathing was shaky. Her little chest rose and fell like it was carrying a mountain. "Grandma," she whispered, "I don't want to go with him. He's not my daddy." I knelt down. "You won't go anywhere. I promise." But promises didn't stop legal proceedings. 3 weeks later I was in family court. David had everything. Lawyer. Job. A new wife with shiny blonde hair and a string of fake smiles. Pictures of his house, his car, his parenting plan. And me. I had truth. When the judge asked for my statement, I stood tall, even though my knees were shaking. "I am not her mother," I began. "I am the woman who was left behind. The woman who was once abandoned. But I am also the one who stayed. Opened my home. Gave her love. I built trust." The judge asked, "Do you believe it's in the child's best interest to keep her from her father?" I looked at David. He smiled like he already knew he was winning. "I believe it's in her best interest to feel safe," I said. "And she doesn't feel safe with him. You can't force blood to replace bonding." The judge nodded. "We'll take this under consideration. For now, temporary visitation is granted, under supervision." Almost collapsed. But the worst wasn't over. Because Emily had to see him. The first supervised visit was at a sterile center downtown. Toys lined the walls. Cameras hung in corners. And a worker named Ms. Rachel sat beside us with a clipboard. David arrived late. Ezra ran to the toy corner, but Emily stayed frozen beside me. "Hey, kiddo," David said, kneeling awkwardly. "I brought you something." He pulled out a pink teddy bear with stiff fur and placed it on the table. Emily stared at it. Didn't touch it. He cleared his throat. "You can call me Dad if you want." She looked up at him, then at me. And said nothing. For 30 minutes he talked. About his house. His dog. His plans. He stayed quiet. When it was over, she walked to me, held my hand and whispered, "He talks too much." I laughed. Couldn't help it. But that visit set off more hearings. More evaluations. And then, one day, I was called into a back room by the court-appointed child psychologist. "Grace," she said, "Emily is experiencing anxiety and regressive behaviors. Night terrors. She's afraid of losing her home again." "I know," I said. "But..." She also mentioned something today that concerned us. My heart thudded. What did she say? She said, "If I have to go, can Grandma come too? I don't want to be alone in a house with secrets again." I felt the floor vanish beneath me. "Secrets?" Yes. "What does she mean?" The psychologist hesitated. She said Mr. Walker yells. Blah. That he hit Ezra once for spilling cereal. My stomach dropped. Suddenly, this wasn't just about who gets her, but why he wants her. Was this about redemption? Or control? I requested an emergency investigation. The judge approved it. A week later, social services visited David's home unannounced. And what they found validated everything. Ezra had bruises. His wife admitted David had a temper. Emily was spared only because she was new. The custody petition was dropped. Permanently. The judge ruled full guardianship to me. And when the gavel hit the wood, I exhaled a breath I'd been holding since the moment I first saw that photograph. Emily was mine. Legally. Completely. That night I cooked her favorite dinner, mac and cheese with hot dogs shaped like stars. She danced in the kitchen while Rose sang old tunes from the radio. We laughed. For the first time in a long time, we laughed without fear. After dinner, Emily climbed into my lap and whispered, "You really are my grandma." I held her close. "Yes, baby. I always was." But just when peace finally started to feel real, another letter came. This one wasn't from a stranger. It was from Ezra, written in crayon. "Dear Miss Grace, can you please come get me too? I don't want to live here anymore. I don't feel safe. Love, Ezra." And just like that, my heart cracked open all over again. If this chapter broke you wide open, take a moment. Then share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe. Because in the next chapter, Grace has to make an impossible choice. Stay safe or open her home to another broken child in need of rescue. The letter sat on my kitchen table for hours. Written in shaky, oversized crayon letters, the kind only a child could write. "Dear Miss Grace, can you please come get me too? I don't want to live here anymore. I don't feel safe. Love, Ezra." Just 6 lines, but they tore something open in me that hadn't fully healed. Because I remembered what it was like to whisper for help, praying someone would hear you through the silence. Ezra was asking for the one thing every child deserves: to be safe. I showed the letter to Rose first. She held it in trembling hands, mouth tight, eyes watering. "That poor boy," she whispered. "He's just a baby. And he's stuck in the same kind of home we both escaped from," I said. "But this time we can do something about it." Rose looked at me. "You're thinking about taking him in, aren't you?" He nodded. "I've seen how Emily watches him," I said. "Even during those short, painful visits. She looks at him like he's a mirror. If I don't do something now, she'll carry guilt for the rest of her life." Rose sighed. "Grace, you've already done more than most people do in a lifetime. You're not young. This is a heavy load." "I'm strong," I said. "I've carried worse." But deep down I wasn't sure. I was 72. My bones ached every morning. My knees creaked when I climbed stairs. I wasn't built for chasing after little boys with scraped knees and boundless energy. But my soul, had more fire in it now than it ever had before. Called my lawyer. "I need to file for emergency guardianship," I said. "For Ezra Walker?" he asked. "Yes. You understand the implications," he said gently. "David is still his legal guardian. There's no active abuse case against him. Just testimony, bruises, and concern. This won't be easy. Nothing worth doing ever is." We filed the motion the next day. The state required interviews, home visits, counseling reports. My life became a storm of paperwork, appointments, and social workers poking through drawers. But I kept a smile on my face. Because Ezra deserved a fighting chance. 3 weeks passed. No word from David. No court response. Just silence. Until the knock. It was late. Nearly 8 p.m. Emily was brushing her teeth. Rose was folding laundry. And I was finally sitting down when I heard the knock on the door. Opened it. And there he was. David. No suit this time. No polished shoes. Just a hoodie, bloodshot eyes, and a voice like sandpaper. "You really trying to take my son now?" I stood firm. "Your son wrote me. He asked for help." He laughed bitterly. "He's 6. He doesn't know what he's saying." "No, David. You're the one who never listened." He stepped forward, breath hot with anger. "You're trying to erase me. I'm trying to protect children from reliving the hell I lived." He pointed at me, eyes wild. "You think you're some kind of savior. You think you're better than me. I know I'm better than the man who lets children cry themselves to sleep in fear." He stepped back, chest heaving. "I'll fight you." "Do it," I said. "Let's put it all in the open. I have nothing to hide." He paused, looked me in the eye, and something inside him broke. "I never wanted any of this," he whispered. "I didn't ask for Ezra. I don't know how to be a father." Softened, just a little. "You don't have to be perfect," I said. "But you do have to be safe. And until you are, he can't live with you." He dropped his head, then turned and walked away. That night I barely slept. The next morning I got the call. "Ms. Holloway," the caseworker said, "we've approved your emergency guardianship for Ezra. He'll be released into your care tomorrow morning." I didn't cry, but my knees buckled. Emily was thrilled. She clapped her hands and made a welcome card that said, "We will protect you forever. Rose-baked banana bread." And I cleaned the guest room for the second time in a year. Ezra arrived with one backpack. That's all he had. He clung to the social worker's hand like she was the last solid thing in his world. "Hi, Ezra," I said, kneeling low. "Do you remember me?" He nodded shyly. I held out my hand. He looked at it for a second, then dropped his backpack and threw his arms around my neck. "I missed you," he whispered. And just like that, my family grew by one more heart. The adjustment wasn't easy. Ezra had night terrors. He screamed if someone raised their voice, flinched if a door slammed, refused to sleep unless his hand was touching someone else's. But Emily held him. She tucked him in. She read him her books. And I stayed up late, stroking his back when the shaking wouldn't stop. Every day we made progress. One morning, Ezra spilled juice on the floor and burst into tears. I'm sorry, I'll clean it up, please don't yell." I knelt beside him. "Baby, it's okay," I said. "It's just juice. We'll clean it up together." His hand shook, but he nodded. And that night, for the first time, he slept without crying. Weeks passed. Seasons changed. And then one day I caught him laughing. Not just a giggle, but a deep belly laugh. The kind that shakes your ribs and warms your spine. He was chasing Emily around the yard with a water gun. His curls were wild. His eyes lit with sunshine. And I thought, this is why I kept going. Not revenge. Not redemption. But rescue. That night, I stood on my porch with Rose. We watched the kids inside drawing on the floor. "You did it," she said softly. "You saved them." I shook my head. "They saved me too." But Rose's face shifted. And that's when she told me, "I'm not well, Grace." My breath caught. She continued, "I didn't want to tell you until the kids were okay. But the doctor found something. My heart. It's not strong." I swallowed hard. "How bad?" "Months. Maybe less." I felt the weight of the world return. "I didn't come here just to apologize," she said. "I came to make peace. And to help. While I still can." Tears filled my eyes. "We've wasted so much time." She smiled. "Then let's not waste another second." That night, she held Ezra as he fell asleep. Emily kissed her goodnight. And I sat at the edge of my bed, praying for time. But just when we thought we had finally carved out peace, an ambulance pulled into our driveway. And Rose's body was slumped on the floor. If this chapter left you breathless, don't scroll without showing love. Like, comment, and subscribe, because next chapter is the final chapter. And in it, Grace faces the most heartbreaking moment yet, and shows us what legacy, love, and quiet power really look like. The sirens broke the night. I heard them before I saw them, rushing like a wave through the quiet street. The flashing red lights lit up our porch like a fire had started inside the walls. But the fire was in my chest. Rose was lying on the kitchen floor, her hands still warm, but her breathing faint, shallow, barely there. She had just been laughing with the kids an hour earlier, peeling apples, humming something old from her childhood. Now she was gasping for breath. "Grandma," Ezra said behind me, "what's happening to Nana?" I knelt beside her, trying to stay calm. "Baby, go get your sister. Go sit on the porch and wait for the helpers, okay?" He nodded and ran, barefoot and scared. I cradled Rose's head in my lap. Her eyes flickered open. "Grace," she whispered. "I'm here, I said, stroking her thinning hair. I'm here. Don't let them forget me. They never will. Her lips trembled. You saved us. All of us. Then her body went still. The paramedics stormed in. I was pushed aside. CPR. Oxygen. Electrodes. Shouting. I stood in the doorway, frozen. Watching the one person who had once broken me become the person I had learned to forgive. Fade right before my eyes. But Rose didn't make it. At 11:42 p.m., the woman who gave me life, and ran from it, took her final breath in the same home where she finally made peace. We buried her 3 days later. Quiet service. No pomp. No long speeches. Just her favorite song, What a Friend We Have in Jesus, and 3 people who loved her enough to remember her at her best. Emily placed a yellow rose on her casket. Ezra clutched my hand so tightly it went numb. When the service ended, I stayed behind. Thank you, I whispered to her grave, for coming back. I wasn't just grieving my mother. I was grieving every version of her I never got to know. Every version of me that had to grow up too fast. Every moment that had been stolen. By pain, by silence, by fear. But grief didn't drown me. Because this time I had built something strong. Something worth holding on to. The months that followed were quiet but full. Emily began first grade. She wore little glasses and carried her lunch in a sparkly bag she picked herself. Ezra started kindergarten. He learned to tie his shoes. He called me Gran G and made up songs while brushing his teeth. We baked cookies. We danced to jazz in the living room. We read 3 books before bed every night, even if I dozed off in the middle of the second one. We were a family. A real one. One morning I found a drawing on the fridge. It was stick figures, 3 of them. Too big. Too little. Labeled. Me. Ezra. Grandma. Nana in the stars. That night, as I tucked them in, Ezra looked up at me. Gran G. Yes, baby. When I grow up, will I be strong like you? I smiled, holding back the tears. Stronger, I said. Because you'll never have to fight alone. Emily whispered. Can we stay with you forever? You already are, I said. You're my forever. And that was the night I knew. The curse had been broken. The chain of pain, silence, and fear that had wrapped around my family for generations. Snapped by love, by choice, by healing. But life still had one more twist. On Emily's 7th birthday, I received a letter. From the city. A civic recognition program. Apparently, one of the social workers had nominated me. It read, in honor of individuals who redefine what family means, through resilience, compassion, and courage, we invite Grace Holloway to receive the Heart of the City Award at our annual ceremony. I laughed, not because of pride, but because the little girl who once hid in a closet now had a community saying, we see you. I didn't care about medals, but I brought the kids anyway. They wore matching green outfits and waved from the front row. When I walked on stage, my knees shook, but my heart was steady. I spoke from my soul. I'm not here because I'm special. I'm here because I survived long enough to become someone who could choose differently. Applause. I'm here because I refused to let pain be my legacy. And I chose love even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. I looked at Emily. Ezra. And if you're watching this, wondering if you're too broken to build something good, let me tell you, you're not. You're not too old. Or too late. Or too far gone. The crowd stood. But I didn't cry. Not yet. Because the best moment came afterward. When Ezra ran up, held out a crumpled piece of paper and said, I made you your own award. It said, Best Grandma, Best Fighter, Best Love. Drawn in crayon. Spelled all wrong. But the most perfect thing I'd ever seen. I hugged him. Held Emily's hand. And we walked home. That night, after tucking them in, I stood at the window. The house was quiet. But not empty. It was full. Full of laughter. Of healing. Of new memories written over old scars. I thought of Rose. Of Emma. Even of Harold. And I whispered into the night. It ended with me. And it begins with them. Because survival isn't just living through pain. It's choosing to build something beautiful with the broken pieces. If this story touched your heart, reminded you of your own strength, or showed you what quiet love looks like, don't scroll without liking, commenting, and subscribing. 'Cause your story matters too. And someone out there needs to hear it. Thank you for staying until the end. Grace's story lives on, through healing, through legacy, and through you.